I'm Cheryl Waters. Welcome to Live on KEXP at Home. Today I'm talking to one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. It's Adia Victoria. Welcome. Hi, Adia.
Hey, Cheryl. How are you?
I'm great. It's so wonderful to talk to you and so great to see you. You look amazing.
Thank you. It's great to see you, too.
And you're at home in Nashville, I imagine.
Yes, I am actually at my boyfriend's house, Mason, who's our lead guitarist. I'm in his room.
You recorded some beautiful songs for us. We're going to share those in a minute. But last time we spoke, you talked about how you feel very rooted at home in Nashville with your mom and your cats. And while it's easy to see the negatives of this forced time at home, off the road from touring, and I know you weren't able to go home to South Carolina for the holidays. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, have you been able to find joy at staying local this past year or so?
You know what? I have. I think the thing that this past year has taught me is to be insistent upon my joy, to not take it for granted, and to also not wait for someone to give me that joy. So I've just been finding, bliss and watching the sunrise every morning through the magnolia tree in my backyard and hanging out with my cats, rubbing my mom's feet, cooking food. It's just really small things that I had to settle into over the course of quarantine, but I'm rooted. I'm happy.
I love to hear that. And I love following you online. You've got some really meaningful, powerful messages and then some fun, lighthearted stuff. You posted a video of Mason recently, and you said, when your creative partner is also your life partner and y'all both Southern as hell, sometimes you get in spats at the table between bits of bacon, eggs, and Bloody Marys over the best open tuning for a pre-war blues cover you're working on for a new record. Yeah. And I loved that. And I imagine during this time of isolation, having a creative partner close by has been a gift.
It has been. He's just been someone the past, 8 years of my life that we've gone through everything together. We've brainstormed, we've bickered, we've lived in a van, we've played the Colbert Show. And this was just a new challenge, quarantine. And you kind of have to, I feel like a lot of people that might be quarantining with their partner, it's a little bit of a give and take, and you figure out like what works best. It's like, do you need to leave the room? But I found that like creating music and working on this next record has been the thing that's like allowed us to not kill each other.
Well, you and Mason recorded some beautiful songs for us. Let's share the first three of those. It's Adia Victoria live on KEXP at Home. Enjoy.
Hear a song on the radio, sing along to every word. See your face everywhere I go. Heaven help me, how it hurts. Lonely, I am lonely, sad and blue, missing you. Lonely, I am lonely. What will I do without you? My heart won't beat anymore. Read the lights, take them everywhere. Nowhere I ramble around. missing you. Lonely, I am lonely. Baby, what will I do without you? My heart don't beat anymore. But only I am lonely, sad and blue, missing you. Lonely, I am lonely. Baby, what do I do without you? My heart don't beat anymore.
This song is called South Gotta Change. It is for John Lewis.
You've been running from the ghosts you keep hidden in your past. The veil before your face is falling, and it's falling fast. I won't go blindly in the night, I will drag you to the light. I stood up to the mountain, told the mountain, say my name. And if you're tired of walking, let the children lead the way. 'Cause I love you, I won't leave you, I won't let you slip away. Come what may, we're gonna find a way. The South gotta change. The South gotta change. You told a lie for so long, you're a stranger to yourself. You're all dressed up in make-believe just to be somebody else. So listen closely when I sing, that the truth would set you free. Yeah. I stood up to the mountain, told the mountain, say my name. And if you're tired of walking, let the children lead the way. 'Cause I love you, I won't leave you, I won't let you slip away. Come what may, we're gonna find a way. The South gotta change. The South gotta change. Squarely at his pain, least of all when power lets him hide from what he is ashamed. But your walls are falling down, so you gotta face me now. I stood up to the mountain, told the mountain, say my name. And if you're tired of walking, let the children lead the way. 'Cause I love you, I won't leave you, won't let you slip away. Come on, babe, we're gonna find a way. I stood up to the mountain, told the mountain, say my name. And if you're tired of walking, let the the children lead the way. 'Cause I love you, I won't leave you, I won't let you slip away. Come with me, we're gonna find a way. The South gotta change, change. The South gotta change, it's gotta change, it's gotta change. The South gotta change, it's gotta change.
with Adia Victoria live on KEXP at home. Adia, I love that Radiohead song so much, and I feel like people don't talk that much about their album Hail to the Thief, and it's one of my favorites. What do you love about that song, and do you love that whole record as well?
Yeah, that record will always have a special place in my heart and my radio fandom heart. That was the record that introduced me to the guys. I first heard it in the summer of 2003. I was in high school, and I was at North Carolina School of the Arts, and the choreographer, I was studying ballet there, and the choreographer, the director of the program, wanted to do our final dance to I Will and Scatterbrain. So that was my introduction to Radiohead's music, and I think it really planted something in me as a dancer of like meeting Tom through his words and having to express those words through my body. And I think it just rooted that record in me. And that was also the record that I listened to when I decided to drop out of high school. It was during the Bush administration, and I was not a big fan of that administration. And a lot of that record has to do with, you know, the propaganda and widespread lies that kind of proliferate through a society. And so I think it just kind of caught on with me and where I was at in my life as a 16-year-old punk.
Absolutely, and really great artwork as well. That goes along with that theme. You performed South Gotta Change. That was one of my favorite songs that came out last year. And you've said the lyrics from that song came easily to you. Can you talk a little bit about the initial spark and the momentum you used to transform it into a song?
Absolutely. So I was just sitting on Mason's back porch this summer, and it was around the time that John Lewis passed. And it was in the wake of the uprisings after the murder of George Floyd. And I just remember feeling this exhaustion that I hadn't felt before as a Southerner. You know, I was born and raised in South Carolina. And I think that the fact that this happened during quarantine, where there were no outside distractions, there was nothing to kind of turn my mind away from what I was feeling inside. And I was really able to connect to this just sense of depletion, this sense of just banging my head against the wall of how many times are we going to go through this? And I know that the murder didn't happen in the South. It was in Minneapolis. But as a Southerner, you know, you walk on land that's not settled. You're walking amongst ghosts that have not been put to rest. And people try their damnedest, you know, with good manners and polite values to pretend that this land isn't what it is. And I was just fed up. And I thought about John Lewis and the way that he talked about good trouble. And a lot of that good trouble is the act of acknowledgement and accountability and facing your ghosts. And so I sat on that back porch and I sipped some sweet tea and I just wrote that song pretty much in one straight go. It just kind of came out of me. And I knew that it was like a cry from my heart. I knew that the lyrics weren't like polished or smart or what have you, but they were true and they were honest. And I just put it out there.
You do, and always have since I met you, talk a lot about being a Southerner. You've said the South has so many stories that get buried and don't get told. Yeah. And as you just said, more or less, if we don't keep centering, you know, these narratives and talking about what the South stands for and about the change needed, you talk about pushing and expanding boundaries of the land every single day. And I'm wondering, you know, you look at your work as a Southern artist, and it permeates everything that you do. I feel like all of your art, for sure.
Yeah. You know, I think it's because, you know, growing up here, I believe that people were afraid of this land. At least all of the adults that I came in contact with, you know, to borrow a term from Ta-Nehisi Coates, they were powerfully afraid of this land and the truths that the land held and the truths that the land would reveal about us, you know, as a society. And as a kid, I was kind of irreverent. You know, I was raised in the church. I had people telling me about eternity and heaven and hell. And I was able to see through that into the adults around me, their anxieties, their uncertainties about their mortality. And so I learned at a very young age to ask big questions of authority, ask big questions of stories that we tell about ourselves, to kind of see through and between, you know, the folk tales that people use to comfort themselves, and to look for truths that are sharp and truths that are uncomfortable and poignant. And so, as an artist, there's nothing else that I could really do. There was nothing else that I could really occupy myself with other than keep asking those questions, because I do believe that a lot of the questions and the internal struggles that the South deals with are struggles that Americans at large deal with, and humans at large deal with, and truth and justice, light and darkness, beauty and horror. And that, for me, like, that's my bread and butter as an artist. Like, that's the marrow of what I do, and probably what I'll continue to do.
You paired up with the legendary producer T-Bone Burnett on the track South's Gotta Change. What drew you to work with him?
I was introduced to T-Bone professionally through a gentleman at my record label, Steve Ralbofsky. He's my A&R guy. And, Steve he's always been very supportive in my art, this kind of Southern eccentric that's always like asking questions and looking into the past. And he's been friends with T-Bone for years. And I think that he kind of just saw in us like two kindred spirits, like, these two folks from the South who, our art is very much rooted in this land. And December of 2019, I met up with T-Bone at Starbucks for coffee, and we talked about a lot of the work that he's doing outside of music. He has a lot of projects going on with civil rights and truth and reconciliation. And that's something that my family is very involved with. My mother, Jackie Paul Sims, is an organizer here in Nashville. So that was actually the way that we made our connection. And then, I explained to him I was a huge fan of Oh Brother Where Art Thou, that soundtrack. That's how I discovered Gillian Welch. She's one of my idols. And, he was just like, well, kiddo, send me some music. And I started sending him music, and the rest is kind of history.
I know from reading some interviews and about some of the work that he's done that after living for decades in Los Angeles, it was a little eye-opening to move back to the South for him. And he talks about how it's forever changed him and the work he'll do until he dies, which, kind of gives me goosebumps. And I want to see more people, having that kind of tenacity for change. South's Gotta Change is such an incredible track in its ability to cause conversation. And I imagine the conversations that you two had while working together were very inspiring and meaningful.
Yeah. The thing about that track, working with T-Bone on it was, I was like, I didn't want this to just be a song explicitly about the South. Like, I wanted people that weren't from here, people that had never even been here, to see themselves in that, to see, the fear of truth, that why people hide, why people tell lies about themselves, why do we create myths, what function does this serve? And so I kind of wanted to look at the South as, not just a region, but maybe like a lover or someone that you love, that you see is struggling with coming to terms with themselves, of what they've done, and just reminding them like the only way out of this is truth. And, T-Bone having left and come back, I definitely related to that. I spent, quite a few years in Brooklyn when I was younger, and I came back home to South Carolina, and you can really feel it when you come back home here. Like, the air is just so heavy, the humidity, the heat, and it feels like the air is just like charged, like loaded with baggage. And so I think that that's something that led him, when he came back here, that he wanted to use his art to examine, like, how do I unpack this? How do I put this to rest before it's my time to leave this land? How do I make peace with it?
The positive attention that you received from the song really seems incredible. I know I mentioned it was on my best of list for 2020, and I know it was on many people's lists. Was the experience of having this fearless and honest portrayal of fury, but also your love for home, what was it like to receive that?
I mean, honestly, I was a little blindsided by it, because we're not in a traditional, promotion cycle where, you go out and you play a bunch of shows and talk to a bunch of journalists. This was kind of like a shoestring, last minute thing. I called my label. I was like, hey, I have the song. I want to put it out. I worked T-Bone on it. Let's do it. But again, like, I think that message, that universal message of like, stop lying to yourself. Like, just, ain't you tired? Like, aren't you tired of lying? Like, aren't you tired of like these ghosts chasing you around? It's like, I know, even not as a Southerner, like that's something I've related to. I've told big lies that follow me, and I know that's part of human nature. And you see it a lot too, like, in the age of social media, of people, primming for the camera and pretending to be something that they think is going to get them approval. It's just like, it's exhausting. And especially now in the age of COVID, it's like, girl, you know that you are home in sweatpants like I am. Just stop lying. It's nice on the other side.
Have you, I imagine, I think I know the answer to this, but you've not played that song to a live audience yet, have you? That's not online.
No, I've never played it with a live
feeling.
audience. I've never played it with my band. It's only just been, it was me and Mason in the studio recording it. We've played it for a few sessions, like with y'all and this one, but I've never played it with my boys. And I'm so excited to just get out there and chant that song in a sweaty club.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
You write about the South with such grace, and tell me about some of the parts of it that you love so much.
Well, I love the food. I've been eating a lot of the food during quarantine. You know what? I love the speed of it. I love the slowness of the South. I love the manners. I work with a lot of New Yorkers in my career. A lot of people from my label will call me and just like get straight into business. And I stop them. I'm like, no, good morning. How are you? I like the sense of kinship here in the South. I love how rooted we are to the land. When I grew up, we would pick peppers off of my Uncle Bill's farm and eat them for dinner. And we pick collard greens and cabbage and corn from there, and spend a lot of times just watching the sun move across the sky behind the pines and, in the shadow of the Blue Ridge Mountains. I love that spiritual connection that Southerners have to their land. And I think that's one of the things that stopped, Southerners from just becoming completely crazy, was that connection to nature. And I love the defiance of these people. I love that we're almost not really Americans in a way. Like, we're almost our own little civilization. And I love how contained the South is. And I guess that's one of the things that's hard about living in Nashville now, is that it's changing so much and it's becoming this town that it's really not, with all these people that aren't really from here. But I guess that's just, that's the passage of time.
I love hearing you talk about the South like that. I know you're an incredibly literary person, and I love seeing stacks of books around your house when you post pictures on social media. What writings are inspiring you lately?
I've gotten into the short stories of Thomas Wolfe. He was a writer in the mid-century, 20th century, from Asheville, North Carolina. Harvard educated. I've loved his work. He's just a beautifully poetic writer. His prose, just like, highly recommend his work. I have been neck deep in this anthology of Black poetry that was edited by Kevin Young. And it basically traces, poetry from colonial times into the 21st century. I've really been leaning deeply into that. And I've also been really steeped in the work of Eudora Welty. A lot of her nonfiction essays on the South, on Southerners, and the importance of location and how Southerners place and locate themselves. She's been someone that's been very close to me in quarantine.
Well, there's a lot to mine there. I was telling one of my fellow coworkers, a DJ, Larry Mizell, yesterday that I was interviewing two Nashville poets a week apart. I'm talking with Valerie June next week.
Yeah.
And we both thought about how cool it would be to do a radio theme around that. So we might hit you up for even more ideas than you just gave us now.
Yes, I love Valerie. Love her.
Yeah, I love her too. I read a recent tweet from you that I loved, honoring Black women of blues who paved the path before you. You talked about Sister Rosetta Tharpe, Jessie Mae Hemphill, Memphis Minnie, Elizabeth Cotton. Tell me more about the inspiration that you pull from them.
Oh, man. I just think that there's something beautiful about picking up a guitar and that guitar almost becoming a second voice for you. Like, it's speaking things that you're not saying with your voice. It's a second voice. And I love hearing the second voice of Black women telling their stories through, six strings. I just think that there's something profoundly comforting there for me. And also, people don't expect that from Black women. We don't expect Black women to be proficient at the guitar, to be storytellers through strings. And so these women that I shared in that post, like, these were women that I looked up to push me to sing my song, like, tell my damn story. Pick up that guitar. You have a right to play that guitar. And actually, this is your lineage. This is your heritage. This is the blues. Like, this is something that they have passed on to me. So I kind of see it as like an heirloom passed down from ancestors. And it's just, they're like my own little community of women.
I love it. Well, you're playing both electric and acoustic guitar in these beautiful songs that you recorded for us. Let's listen to a couple more now.
Yeah.
You're listening to Adia Victoria live on KEXP at home, and this is Mexico Blues. This comes from her 2016 album, Beyond the Bloodhounds.
just one down in Mexico. I am your baby in Mexico. William, you don't tell nobody about me. Don't you tell nobody about me. Don't you dare tell your daddy about me.
And this song is called Carolina Bound. It is a new song, and we're going to play it today because my mama asked me to.
Tennessee's broke me, broke me to my knees. The pretty boys in Memphis made a fool out of me. Times are hard in Nashville. The cash I had is gone. I left my kind of Carolinas land. It's not my home. I mean to leave and not be found like a river right underground. I'm Carolina bound. I'm Carolina bound. I wander through the mountains, through the blue, through the smoke. I let these folks change me and rearrange me, and that's what hurts the most. The days have turned to weeks, the months have turned to years. It's long past time I return to the pines of a dam. If I'm done here, I mean to leave and not be found like a river out on the ground. I'm Carolina bound. I'm Carolina bound. Long for my mother, brother and sister too, to see and smell the ocean, turn my pain into blues. I mean to leave and not be found like a river underground. I'm Carolina bound. I'm Carolina bound. Carolina bound. I'm Carolina bound. Carolina bound.
You're listening to Adia Victoria live on KEXP at home, and that song, Carolina Bound. Wow, that's a new song. I want to thank your mama for asking you to play that.
Yeah.
And tell me about it.
So I actually, at the beginning of the pandemic, I had just been hired by Amazon. Before COVID happened, I was in Paris, and that's where I began working on these songs, doing the sessions with one of my creative partners in Paris. And I was like, well, I'm not going to be touring this year, and I don't have a lot of outside income, so I'm just going to get a job at Amazon, and that could be fun. So I did when I came home, and then COVID hit. And this summer, I was just like, filling orders, and I just had this feeling of, what am I doing here? Like, what is this life? Like, I'm wearing like masks and I'm working in the middle of the plague. I just felt lost. I think it was the most lost that I have felt. And I wrote that song in my head while I was pushing my cart. And I was just thinking, I want to go home. I want to be back in South Carolina. Like this place, Nashville, this is not my home. And I could feel the separation from Carolina and the differences that I don't think, unless you were a Southerner, that you would notice those differences. Like I was like, man, they don't have pine trees here. You know, they don't have my kudzu here. You know, I think it's just something that a lot of people have felt during quarantine. It's just like this separation, this isolation. And I think a lot of us are looking for the comfort of before times, and we're looking for the familiar because everything is so strange right now. So I kind of poured that into that song. And the riff that I'm playing is kind of a mix between Mississippi John Hurt and Skip James. It's in, open D minor. It's a very mournful song, but it also has this like high morning kind of vocal effect to it. So I think it's probably the most Southern song that I've written. I love that song. Like, not to beat my own horn, but beat beat.
I love it too. Toot toot. Yes,
Toot,
definitely. Well, thank you for sharing it with us today. You reference a new record. What can you tell us about that?
So this record, I began writing, as I mentioned, last winter while I was in Paris. And I wanted to tell stories that were not necessarily like autobiographical, that weren't necessarily my own. Then I started like reading old Southern folklore tales of people, of loss and redemption and grace. And I wanted to tell Southern stories of people on the run, people coming home, people hiding out, people showing out. And it's a very different approach than the last record that I did with Aaron Dessner. This one is a lot more rooted. We use a lot of like found percussion, like beans in a can and rice and sticks and stomps and hand claps. And we actually sampled as well a lot of the work songs that Alan Lomax did of Prisoners on the Chain Gang. We did that as well. I learned how to play bass on some of these songs because I didn't have my full band to record. And I don't know, there's just something like gritty and kind of stanky about them. And I'm working on these songs with T-Bone as well. So I just wanted them to sound like old-timey almost.
Oh, I cannot wait to hear more of them. It was such a treat to hear you perform those songs today. And I can't wait to see you perform live with your full band and have you back in this room here at KEXP. There's just so much to look forward to. But we're so grateful to have these kind of experiences, still able to connect and share live music. The strength of the heart and the spirit cannot be broken. And
That's right.
I'm just so grateful for people like you. And I have to ask, how are the cats?
The cats are doing just capital. We all just lay in bed together, and I love it. I love it.
I love it too. Well, they need a little bit more FaceTime on Instagram.
Yeah.
If I can say so myself.
I was just about to ask you to send me more pics of your kitties too.
I will. I just got some kitties during pandemic, and they've definitely been a bright light for me. And again, along with all this great music. Adia, thank you so much. It is just always a pleasure to chat with you. And thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for keeping me company today, Cheryl. Thank you.
Love you loads.
Love you too, girl.
This is Adia Victoria live on KEXP at Home. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Discover new music at listener-powered KEXP.org.